Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock Foundation Disc Golf's a weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor. And today, for the first time in quite a while, we actually have some tournament results. The only ones that I really wrote down was the Northwest Arkansas. Was the Northwest Arkansas Open. Northwest Arkansas Open, because that one had a lot of big names, but there was also, I forget what the tournament was called. Trophy, I think it was the Trophy Open or something like that Brody played. That had Emerson Keith and Mason Ford there. Mason Ford actually ended up winning that. But I didn't write those ratings
crazy.
down. Yeah, he played good because Brody's final round was like 10:55 or something like that. But yeah, the Northwest Arkansas Open had a lot of big names there. We had Chris Clemens actually taking it down by one stroke over Nico LaCastro and Cale Leviska.
Name I haven't heard in a little bit.
Who?
Chris Clemens?
Chris Clemens, yeah. And, you know, I think he averaged like 1050, close to 1060 rated golf somewhere in there. So
I'll do it.
Yeah, not a bad tournament at all. And on the FPO side, we had Katrina Allen winning by, I believe it was 21 strokes or 19 strokes. Kat Mersch was in second, and then Caitlin Belty came in third. Kat Mersch and Katrina Allen are two names that, I mean, obviously we know Katrina Allen and Kat kind of burst onto the scene on tour a little bit this year. Yeah. So, you know, a rather stacked field on both sides, it seemed like. Nothing crazy, you know.
Just another, was it an A tier?
It was an A tier.
Just another little A tier to add to Kat's points for Player of the Year, even though Paige wasn't there to beat her.
I mean, that is a valid one. But
can we address the people that like thought that we were like against prodigy players? Like,
I mean, if you want to take a second to.
Okay,
yeah.
People are saying that, like, from our last podcast, we talked about how the Player of the Year results were skewed, and people said it was because we were like, they thought we were like against prodigy players. And I realized looking back at it, okay, we were advocating for Discraft players against prodigy players, but
and Innova and Discmania and Calvin Heimberg.
I promise you that had nothing to do with it. And you can say whatever you want about the Chris Dickerson one. That's fine. He did win the only major of the year, whatever.
And he also played well.
Yeah, like, I
looked back at the, not to rehash all of this, I looked back at the Ultiworld stats again afterwards. He was the one that was second to Paul in the Ultiworld stats.
Okay, so that one's whatever. That one is whatever. But the trying to say that Kat had a better season than Paige when she lost to Paige, like 8 out of the 11 times they played each other, like, that's just ridiculous. That's all I need to say on it.
Well, yeah.
Like, obviously, the manufacturer has nothing to do with the argument.
The only argument that was really brought up was that then Paige should have played more A tiers, but
no, they're irrelevant.
Player for Rookie of the Year, I can understand.
Yeah, because you're maybe not gonna be on tour yet.
Player of the Year, the amount of events you play shouldn't matter. It should be who was the best player that year. And so maybe it does have to be biased, or not biased, but voting. I'm worried about that being biased, but
it would also be one thing if it was like, oh, Paige only played 4 Elite Series events, but she won all of them. But no, she played all of the Elite Series events, or at least all of them except for maybe 1 or 2. I think she played all of them. I'm not positive on, yeah. But like it's the fact that she played, like, the Elite Series events are the ones that you know the big names are gonna be at, so those are the ones that should count. Like, it would be one thing if, like, well, Paige should play more events because she doesn't even play all the Elite Series, but she is playing those.
Yeah, it's just she didn't play A tiers. And I also want to mention, clear this up too, we were not bashing A tiers as tournaments. A tiers are amazing. They're, you know, one of the top ends of the sport, but they're not Elite Series. Correct. So, you know, when we said, I think the word was like obscure or random A tiers, it was talking about the field, the players showing up. It had nothing to do with the TDs or anything running it. Right. I didn't think I'd need to clear that up, but apparently. Anyways, on other disc golf news, we saw Brody Smith sign a 2-year extension with Discraft, being the first movement we've really seen player-wise in this offseason.
Yeah.
Because we've had, I think, Sarah Sinclair moved, Chris Dickerson signed back over the summer, and then there's Brody Smith who signed a 2-year extension. Right. I don't think the extension with Discraft really surprises anyone.
Well, no, because he was only on a short-term deal.
Yeah, and so I don't think that really surprises anyone. Right. The 2-year might surprise some people, but that doesn't really surprise me. Or I think multiple-year deals are kind of becoming the norm in disc golf now.
Oh, yeah.
To where
I'm surprised it wasn't even longer term, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's just kind of becoming a normal thing. So I don't think that's going to surprise many people.
I'm going to catch slack for that comment and like realize that even though I'm not speculating about his game, I'm speculating about the fact that he moves plastic like no other. I mean, Get Freaky zones are a very popular disc, and for manufacturer, that alone is some serious incentive to sign a player.
Yeah. So that's the first. I mean, I'm hoping that as the off season kind of really gets going, there's some like dramatic stories of like, oh my word, can you believe that Eagle went to Prodigy or whatever?
Nope. Can't believe
whatever
it.
happens, that we can actually like have a more.
Well, who's the big fish in the pond are still Eagle and James Conrad.
And Ezra Adderhold, I think, is the one that has the biggest question mark next to because
he didn't have anybody.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone else is almost synonymous with their sponsor, to where like, is Eagle really going to leave Discmania?
Yeah. I agree.
I'd be shocked. Is James Conrad really going to leave Innova? Again, I'd be shocked. You know what I mean? Ezra Adderhold, I think, is the one that has the biggest question mark next to him.
I can't believe he hasn't been signed yet.
I'm sure that.
I mean, he's going to get
signed. Tons of people are talking to him.
Right.
A lot of companies, I don't think, really like to announce it towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, even.
I don't know what I really don't know what he's worth.
It's a tough one. You know, I will say that
probably a short-term contract.
He's working on his YouTube stuff as well and like trying to grow that. So if I was a company, I think I would sign him short-term. No,
honestly,
because
I'd lock him in. I'd lock him in long-term cheap.
I guess if I was a manufacturer, I'd lock him in long-term cheap. If I'm him, I'd want a short-term, because if my YouTube made me more valuable, if my play next year made me more valuable, I would want that short term so that I can have that as a negotiating chip.
Sure.
It'll be very interesting to see what he signs. I feel like whenever a player hasn't been with a manufacturer already, they opt for the short term, just because you don't know how is this player going to do with all of our discs in their bag.
Right. And
how is this player going to market us?
You're not going to get a great amount long term anyways as somebody who's not quite proven yet. So
I would expect a short term deal with someone, but I don't know exactly who that someone's going to be. He threw a rather mixed bag. So it's not like it was super heavy one or the other.
Maybe he'll end up with,
it seemed to be mainly Discraft, Discmania, and Innova in there, from what I understood.
Yeah, maybe he'll end up with Innova. Who knows?
Maybe. I think that'd be a good sign for Innova, personally.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
young talent's always good.
Yeah, I think really no company I think is going to lose with him. But there's a lot of up and comers in general that no company's going to lose with. But past all the player news, on to a little bit of tournament news. We saw this. It was actually a little while ago, but we never talked about it on here, which was that the Ledgestone Insurance Open is contemplating. They haven't fully said whether they're doing it or not doing it yet. They're contemplating having a 950 minimum rating cap to get into MPO for the event.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of lines up with a lot of things we've talked about, but I wanted to kind of explain their reasoning for it. I pulled a few things from the article they released. I'm going to read over those really quick, and then we'll talk through what we think about it. So, at the time, our desire was to weed out people who had no realistic chance of cashing in an Elite Series event. When we looked at the issue in 2019, our research indicated that someone rated below 935 had almost no chance of cashing an Elite Series event. With the explosive growth of disc golf and ever-growing number of touring players, the next logical step to 935 may need to be skipped over. Then Heinold went on to explain that with tournaments filling up at record paces, the desire to make sure the top event has room for the best players, and the desire to continue to increase the professionalism of the tour, 950 could be the next logical step.
That sentence right there. To increase the professionalism of the tour. That's like music to my ears, Nate Heinold. Thank you for saying that.
And then they also said the bottom line is that Eureka Temp and Northwood are two of the most challenging courses in the world. With the kind of field sizes they have, it is challenging to fit that many players into one day of competition, and lower rated players naturally tend to have higher scores, which increases round time, said Heinold. By cutting some of the lower rated players, Heinold says round times will decrease, especially at Northwoods, which will make things easier on the players and the staff. There's also in the article kind of talked about the PDGA making the ratings cap 900 for Elite Series events, and it did say that as Heinold was on the board of directors, he was someone who was pushing for that to be higher.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see Heinold testing his own ideas with his big event.
Good for him.
See how it works out. So
he's saying all the right things.
I was gonna say, obviously you're on the pro side of this should be implemented. What do you see as the benefits? If you want to expand, I know a lot of the benefits he kind of gave, but if you want to expand on some of those, what are the benefits to this?
Well, the big thing beyond like I love that he said about increasing the professionalism of the tour. That is just amazing because like that's what needs to happen. That's the reason cuts are important and these ratings caps. It's because we want the best players in the field. You don't want some random spectator. Now I realize that's not even a thing right now, but you don't want somebody to see a spectator show up and watch some 860 guy throw off the tee and be like, oh, that's this pro disc golf tournament. No, we want the tour to look like these guys are all out here and they know what they're doing. But beyond even that, it's true that tournaments are filling up, especially Elite Series. They're filling up so quick because the game is just getting rushed with new talent and all these good players. So that's what I think is even more important at this stage is just making sure that we have the strongest field possible. Because you could you could cap it at like 970 and the field would probably fill up. Like, I'm curious to know how high you could make that cap and still fill the field. I think 950 is a good start because you get a little bit higher than 950 and there are those AMs that can sneak into cash and like are good storylines. But 950, that's a good number to start with.
Yeah, I did find it interesting that they basically said
they used research to back it up too. I love that. They were like, we literally looked and saw that 935 guys, like they're not cashing.
Well, that's what I thought was interesting was like they used the 935 as like the statistic, but then basically said with the growth of disc golf and everything that's going on, we think that the next step is 950. So they jumped from 900 to 950 and kind of skipped that middle step of 935.
Right.
I don't think there's any cons in my head, at least, to lowering, changing this minimum cap because, to be honest with you, a lot of players that are below that 950 rated area, they're playing open just for the experience of playing with potentially a person or two, but they're still AM level status. Yeah. So this isn't cutting them from the event. They could potentially still play in the amateur level side of this event. So it's not like it's saying, well, sorry, you don't get to be here at all. They still could come. The only con I see isn't per se in cutting the field, but the way they're doing it. And this isn't even really a con. I just don't like ratings being the cut. Simply because there could be a player without a rating. There could be a player who hasn't played an event in a while and is 940 rated. And, or there could be a player who like got injured, decided to play through his injury. His rating tanked, but he's actually like 970 rated, but he's right now 940 rated. That now can't play the event, even though they would almost belong there.
That's a good point, but I think 950 is a low enough number that like if you're a good enough guy to be out there and competing, you can get your rating above 950 in time.
I agree.
But
I agree. I just think going forward, I don't want to see this.
The opposite effect could be true even more though, where guys can sandbag their rating. It's just low enough that they might be able to just get their rating above 955 early in the year and then stop playing.
Yeah, well,
and they're really not that good.
Well, I think that's going to happen a little bit less. I think that will be a one kind of downside of it is like if I'm 950, because I think it's at time of registration. So if I'm 952 right now and I'm sitting there and I have a tournament at a course next week near me, but I know I want to sign up for Ledgestone next year, I might not play that tournament. And I might not play the next tournament. And then by the time I get to Ledgestone, I have no tournament experience between now and then. And I walk into Ledgestone as a 930 rated player. But there's also... I think that ratings, as the sport increases and grows, let's say they did increase this to 970. You can still make the argument that that's fine, but once they increase it to like 1,000 or something, that's when things get hairy. Because once you get to a number that, if you're a good player, is still hard to achieve, which I think 1,000 is very hard to achieve still, even if you're a great player, even though there's hundreds and hundreds of thousand rated players now, it's still like the kind of like when you have 4 digits next to your name, there's like this like, oh wow, that guy's good. But I think that issue, it brings in like the regionality of ratings to where, if you play like a C tier near your house, it's going to be really hard to shoot 1,000 rated if you're the highest rated in the field at 985 or 990 or whatever you are right now. And then if you go, it's going to be hard to get 1,000 rated based on the regions. Whereas it might be easier out West Coast if you're in middle of California and there's 25,000 rated players showing up to the C tier, which I don't think that statistic is anywhere close to accurate, but you see what I'm saying. The fields might be stronger at different places that make the 1,000 rated line get blurry. And so that's why I don't like ratings. I would rather see it be a qualification process to where, maybe it's starts with a rating of 1,000 plus, however many people fill that field, and then there's a qualification event on Monday, and then that fills the rest of the field.
Right.
So that, if a 935 rated player, he just started, he had one bad round, one great round, he shows up to the qualification event, improves, he beats out the other players, he should be able to be in the field.
Yeah, I like the idea of qualification events.
That's where I think the rating starts to get blurry. I think 950, like you said, is a low enough number that if you're good enough to be there, you should be able to be above 950. I can see that. But I think as that number goes higher, it could cause some kind of confusion, or not even confusion, but some issues with players not playing events, or like if it is like that 9,700 or 1,000 rated or whatever, it might be harder to where a player who might be 1,000 rated on tour is only 990 rated at home, and then therefore he can't be on tour because of that rating cap.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be where I see issues if we continue with this down the line. So that's my only thing. But I did also want to bring up, do you think that the tour is at a place where they could implement this tour-wide, where it's not just Ledgestone, but it's national if you tours. Want to play on a pro tour, I think just pro tour.
Just pro tour.
If you want to play on a pro tour, you have to be 950 rated or above.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there any downsides to doing it tour-wide?
No. I mean...
Are the events still filling if you do it?
Yeah.
I think they said last year, if this cut was in place last year, 26 players, I believe that was the number. I think it was 26. 26 players would not have been there. There's 26 players below 950. And I think the lowest cash was... I wish I would have actually looked at this. I think the lowest cash was like 960 to 975 range. The lowest rated player that cashed. So 950 does seem like a very...
I think it's doable
number. But there were people that were upset in the comments over it.
People are always upset.
I think it's change. You know, it's change in the disc golf community. It's change in the way the tournaments run.
The good news is, like, these changes, like these cuts, there's a way to get past them and just improve your game. Like, I mean, well, I wouldn't be able to get on right now. I'm 3 points below that rating, but like, I mean, if I really worked at it, I probably could get above 950 rating. It's not like it's exclusivity. Anybody can do it. You just got to work at your game.
Well, I think that's the thing is like,
and 950 is another rate. Is the thing about 950? It's a rating that's achievable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even if you're not some freak athlete, like 950, if you really work at your game, you can get to 950.
Yeah. So, I kind of lost my train of thought I was just on. It's a slow train. I'll find it. I'll hop back on. But I do think that after this test year, it's tough because I want to say the rating should increase because 950, you're a really good am. You know what I mean? I don't think you're a pro yet. You know, just skill wise, I think it's going to be tough for a 950 rated player to go out and compete in a good MPO field day to day. There might be a round here or there where they cash, because I was that 950 rated player at once where I could pop off 1 week and cash, and then the next week you'd find me in very last place in MPO. Because I think that a lot of players who are in that spot, you're 950 because you're inconsistent. 1 weekend you're 980 rated, and the next weekend you're 890 rated. That just
happened to me.
That's just like how that rating kind of tends to fall sometimes. So I would kind of like to see it go up a little bit, but I would really like to see it be qualification processes for the tour. And maybe it is the Silver Series. I've talked about this so much on this podcast that I'm sure every single listener is sick of me. Actually, I know most of them are. But like the tour card idea, there's certain things in the sport that I have a really hard time finding cons for. And so it makes it like, well, what is it going to do that hurts the sport? And then what's it going to do to help the sport? And when the help the sport column is like twice as long as a hurt the sport column, it's a no-brainer to me. And I think this 950 rated thing is one of those things, because what is it doing to hurt the sport? 26 players, individual players that played last year, unless their rating increases, don't get to play this year. But those 26 spots will be taken by 950 rated better players than them. So what does it do to help the sport? It'll speed up time. You know, I saw a lot of arguments saying like that's not the reason, you know, hole 12 is the whole reason, blah, blah, blah. Fact of the matter is there were players going out in the morning that would blow up on hole 12, and then it just causes, it's the same way like traffic happens. on the highway. One person slams on his brakes, and that just passes until no one's moving anymore. You know, and that's literally what happened. I was at Ledgestone. I walked with Brody's card, and then sometimes I'd walk with Paul's card. Brody's card was like middle of the day, middle of the morning. We'd already have like a 40-minute backup, and then by the time Paul's card, which was the last card or second to last card, got there, they would have over an hour backup on this one hole. And that's just how it built it. It all started with the morning.
Yeah.
So that's where they're coming from, is they're like, if we can just take those players that are taking 13, 14s, which very good players are still going to take high numbers on that hole 12. But if we can remove those cards that have 4 players taking high numbers on the hole and replace it with only 1 player or something, it should speed up the play.
Yeah.
And then, like, so the pros just go on and on, especially for Ledgestone. And the cons, I have a hard time finding cons to this. I think the only people that are upset are the people that are like, well, it's the open field, so it should be open to everyone. But it's the open field at an elite series. So I think that's where the two things don't collide. Right. Open field at a C tier, B tier, A tier, maybe even national tour, sure.
Yeah.
But open field at an elite series is a different thing because it's an elite series. And I also, you know, we talked about this some last week with the cuts. I don't think the FPO field is close to being ready for this type of like minimum rating to play, which they might have a minimum rating to play in the elite series, but it's not something that's like 950, you know. It's not like something that's very, very hard to achieve. It's if it is minimum, I think it's in the low 800s, but I think the FPO field, we need to find as many ways as possible to fill it out before we ever even consider implementing any of this.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you have any other topics on that one? I feel like that was
I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean,
it was an interesting topic, but it's hard to debate it. I wanted to debate it. I love when there's something that I can like clearly see the other side and like play devil's advocate, but
there's not enough on the other side.
This is week 2 in a row that I'm like, I can't find the other side of this argument. Like the 950 ratings cap on an elite series event,
it just makes sense.
It just makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna ask you again. You know, y'all provided a lot of comments last week on when I asked this. If you have a argument against the 950 minimum rating to play in Ledgestone, leave it in the comments down below or DM us on Discord, Facebook, YouTube. You can't DM on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be. DM us and let us know, because I'd love to hear it, and I'll probably respond, whether it's, you know, I think it's a great point or if I think I have a counter argument too. I like to engage that way. But if you have a disagreement with the 950 ratings cap, let us know, because I'd love to hear it and kind of think through it a little bit more. And, you know, I think the rest of the tour, it's the same. I think the pro of the Northwood Gold specific thing isn't there on the rest of the tour. But making the tour more professional, I think, is just so big of a pro that whatever cons, it just can't really relate. Because I think being a pro tour player, I've said this since the beginning, being a pro tour player, I think is something that players should be able to be proud of. Like, I earned this, even if it is being 950 rated, or 1,000 or 970 rated, or
you should have no doubt if somebody tells you they play on the pro tour that they are good.
They're good. Yeah. It shouldn't be that
because right now
798 rated player can go play on the pro tour and tell you he's a pro disc golf pro tour player. That just, it makes no sense to me. I don't understand why it is a thing right now. It's not, you know, I know it's a 900 rated cap right now, but even a 910 rated player, I don't understand why they can go play. I don't see where that helps grow the pro tour and trickle down to grow the sport. So with that being said, it's time to move on to Trevors Trivia. I have no idea what he's about to ask me. So yet again, I normally have some idea, but 2 weeks in a row, he's kept it hidden.
I've got two little, like PTSD from my old roommate right there. He was a wrestler, if you get that reference. So I've got 2 different like little segments here. The first one is going to be called This Year in Disc Golf. Okay. And the next one's going to be called Disc Golf Price is Right. And you're going to like that one.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So this year in disc golf, I have a year. Yeah, it's kind of like we did last week, but this, instead of a player, it's a year. This time I'm going to read you every single clue, and then you can try and piece it together.
Okay.
Okay.
2015.
No.
Can you imagine how I just nailed it?
So why would I pick a year that recent? It'd be way too easy.
I don't know. That's when I
so
graduated
here
high
are
school.
the clues I got. I think I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clues. Okay. So first clue: Ken Klima was world champion.
All right, got 12 to pick from.
Barry Schultz was Player of the Year.
Oh, boy.
The Discraft Meteor was approved by the PDGA.
Oh, gosh.
Paul Ulibarri won Amateur Worlds. I think Nico came in like 5th. And the first ever European Open was held and won by Dave Feldberg. Which year is this?
It's in the 2000s. For sure. So it's one of Climo's later ones. I'm going to say 2006.
You got it.
Really?
Yeah. Excellent.
Shoot, I have no idea how I guessed that.
Wow.
I just knew it was in that era of like Ken Climo wrapping up, and I knew like 2007 was
his
like
last world titles. 06.
And 7 he was still Player of the Year, but I knew Schultz was coming in there somewhere around there. I'm shocked. I mean, it was a blind guess.
It was impressive.
A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah. So this one is going to be really difficult. It's called Disc Golf Price is Right. What I did is I went to eBay, and I went to sold discs on eBay.
Oh, gosh.
And I looked through, and I picked, I think I have 7 discs.
This is going to be criminal.
And your goal, we'll say your goal is to stay within $200 over all 7 of these discs. So
without going over?
Without going, well, I'll let you go over.
Okay.
But just stay within a $200 price range. For all. This is going to be very difficult to do.
There's no way I do this.
So I'm giving you that goal. But the goal, if you're watching or listening, is to just try and beat Hunter. See if you can guess closer what he guesses.
I'm very bad at collector's markets.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know. So we'll see what you're made of. Some of these will throw you way off.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we'll start a little bit simple. This is a new Discmania Cloudbreaker 3. It's the swirly S-line plastic. Brand new. The newest Cloudbreaker.
And these are sold items.
Mm-hmm. These all sold. These
so
are
they
not
weren't
just listed. Right. So somebody actually had to be willing to pay for these items.
Okay. Cloudbreaker 3.
Yes, the newest one.
The newest one.
Yeah.
Sold, I'm going to say $125.
It was $100.
Okay.
So
25
bucks. I'll write this down so I keep track here.
All right, 25 over. I'm okay with that.
Not bad, not bad. So the next one. This is an 11-time KC Pro T-Bird, no ink, 160 grams.
I think this could either be astronomically high or like, wow, it's only for that much. I'm going to say 75.
Wow. Awesome guess. $87.
I
thought you would way overshoot on that. So
I feel like old plastic isn't hyped anymore. I feel like it's kind of died.
That was a $12 difference there.
All right. That's a good first.
That was an incredible guess because when I saw that, I was like, I guess it's only 160 grams, but it was like pretty good condition, like no ink, KC Pro T-Bird. Okay, so this one is an Innova Jaguar. This is a disc from the early 90s.
Yeah.
It's like DX, obviously. Innova Jaguar.
Was it new or used?
It was used.
30.
$104.
Who did that? What? Why? Why are you paying for that?
Because it's early 90s. It's like, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's a relic.
That one hurts.
That's putting you close to the edge.
That's going to be it.
You're
Well,
like,
I'm
you're like
at like $100.
$111.
Yeah. Shoot.
Okay, this
that was a big one.
Is a Glow MD3. I believe it's a European Open Glow MD3, autographed by
sick.
Eagle McMahon himself.
I think the ink lowers the value.
Autographed by Eagle.
Yeah.
How would it lower the value when it's
collectors are weird, dude. I've tried before I got.
But
into
a guy
Foundation,
like Eagle,
Paul. Before I got into Foundation, I tried selling stuff with Paul's signature, and everyone told me since you had Paul sign it, it lowered the value.
That's ridiculous, especially when it's Eagle's signature disc. I find that to be preposterous.
I don't know, man. That's what everyone said.
Hit me with your best shot, though.
Oh crap.
I mean, okay, let's say it's like a first run Protostar X Cal and Paul signs it, fine. But like if it's a rock, like a Big Bird rock, and he signs it, it's like his disc.
What I had heard was that a signature lowers the disc.
That's crazy to me.
Maybe it's changing now that players are getting bigger, but
I don't understand
back
that.
3, 4, 5 years ago,
maybe that makes a little bit of sense.
It was just ink at all. MD3 Glow. I'm gonna say 110.
It's 158.
Shoot. I don't have much room for error anymore.
$200 was gonna be very difficult for you, and you're not gonna get it. But
thanks.
But everybody can try. Everybody can try and beat you. All right, so 3 more discs. So this is a Protostar first run Innova Champ Spider.
Come on.
It starts getting real difficult. There's got to be some collectors that are listening that know this stuff.
No, there's gonna be someone that gets all of them. That's probably like, oh yeah, Champ Spider Proto. Like, I feel like there's just like a cult following of the spider that makes this like $120.
$295.
And there I go. I'm gone. Who's buying that for $300? Why is there a market on eBay? I thought everything was flipped on Facebook.
There's a lot more sold on there. One that I didn't write down that was doing really well was like a really old Champ Stingray, like pre-flight. They were like real expensive in bad condition, like over $100. Wow. Okay, so this one is a black with a green hollow stamp, 4-time Paul Zone. Black. A black one with a green hollow stamp.
Those have got to be going for a pretty penny.
Yeah.
I'm going to say $250.
$400.
Holy. Disc golfers have gotten crazy, man.
Yeah.
I've never, the most expensive disc I think I've ever flipped was I haven't flipped a disc in like 2.5 years. Maybe longer. That's not true. I might have flipped one or two. It doesn't matter. I haven't flipped one in a long time. It was like a Sexton Firebird. I think I got like 100 something, 110 for it. And I was like, holy cow, I'm doing something. Now I see Get Freaky's going for like $600. And I'm like,
there was also a Paul 4-time Buzz on there that was like $250. That sold. Like really, that 4-time stuff, man, went for good money. All right, so last one. This is a first run Vibram Ascent in the X-Line Plastic. So now Vibram doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, that can't be worth much. It's going to be worth a lot somehow. $200.
$650.
$650.
I'll show you the listing. I think it had like a marking on it that like made it rare too. It had like a black X over it.
Who is buying this?
$650.
What?
Yeah,
on earth?
I'll hand it to you though. You were hanging in there. You did pretty well until it got to the really difficult stuff. So you did a pretty good job.
Who pays $650 for a Vibram disc?
Yeah. I don't know, but I was impressed with that effort from you. We might have to bring that one back at some point.
Yeah, that's a great game. I love that. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, I gasped.
Dude, the amount of people too that are ticked off at the collector market, right? That people like buy discs to flip. One thing that I've always found interesting is people are so mad at how much people are making off of this. But my thing is,
somebody's willing to pay.
There's someone on the other side that's willing to pay.
And is happy to pay.
Yeah. And I don't get it. So like,
it's called supply and demand.
Yeah, but why is the demand there? Like, why is that Vibram disc selling for $650? Was that a bid, or did someone put it for buy it now and someone just went for it?
I think it was a buy it now. Some of these were bids. I think there's just certain collectors who are just looking like, maybe like that's like maybe there's Vibram collectors out there and that's like the hardest one to get your hands on, and that marking that it had on it makes it like one of a kind. Like, it's tough to say. Like, but the Paul 4-time Zone, like that's just a straight up, like that was like a kind of a stock run.
Yeah.
Like $400. That's crazy. Like you and I could have bought that disc. Dang it.
That could have been us. But yeah, I don't understand. I have no problem with people flipping discs.
No,
I'm gonna just say it. I know I'm gonna get flamed for that.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, before I would never flip a disc as a retailer nowadays.
Oh, sure.
Well, I think when we first started Foundation, we flipped some, but it wasn't like we bought it wholesale and flipped it. Or if we sold it for more than what it was worth, it was to raise money for a tournament.
Yeah.
But that very rarely happened. I think it was a few Crystal Raptors we sold to raise money for the Battle for Bedford. But before then, I flipped discs because that was something that just you could make a little extra money.
Yeah.
But they weren't going for crazy prices, and no one had problems with flippers back then.
Yeah. Nowadays,
people have problems with flippers because they buy up all the stock and then flip it for astronomical profit amount. Like,
yeah,
we'll make let's just say $10 on a disc.
Sure.
That then goes to a flipper that is able to make $150
yeah.
on said disc. And of that, the player gets, I don't know player margin, so we'll just say $2 or something from that disc, whatever it may be. So like when you look at it like that, it looks criminal. But the whole thing is, there is someone that just paid that $300 for that disc.
Yeah.
That's what's gotten crazy in disc golf. It's not the flippers' fault. The flippers have always existed. They've gotten up in volume, sure, but they've always been there. It's why are people now paying so much for plastic?
I don't know.
Like, and it's not going to stop until.
I think the sport's just booming right now.
But it's not going to. People who are mad at it, it's not going to stop until you can convince the buyers to stop spending that much.
Right. Well, I mean, look at the sneaker market. It's been like that forever.
Yeah.
There's drops that
I don't
are
think
just
the disc golf market's going anywhere. I don't think
No.
I think that the disc golf flipper market is just arriving. I think that we're going to see stuff go crazier.
Yeah.
Because
as the sport gets more popular, there will be people that get into the game that are more serious about collecting, that have more money to spend, and will be willing to pay big time money. And as soon as people see how much, like, those people set precedent.
Yeah.
So when they spend this much on certain discs because they are that passionate of a collector, and
then that value is set.
Right, that value just went up for that disc, and now other collectors have that, and that's how trading cards are working too right now. Like the trading card market's getting big. Like,
well, that's what's going to start happening.
Like, what's wrong with that? Like discs, it's fun. It's fun to buy and sell discs.
And I don't think there's a problem. I look at it and I understand the frustration of people who want to throw or whatever. Because like you want to throw it and you're like, well, I missed it on drop day and now I have to pay hundreds.
Here's the good news though, like all of that stuff that's usually really expensive, you can usually buy that disc. Like the Brody Get Freakies, for example, they were so expensive flipped, but now they're a stock disc. Yeah, anybody can throw them for a retail price. And like expensive, like we looked at that 4-time Paul Zone that went for $400. You can buy yourself a Z Zone for $15, and it's the same disc. Like if you're a thrower, you can experience these discs. Like there might be the rare occasion, but like
there are some runs.
Yeah,
like proto first run stuff, whatever.
Right.
That's different. But my thing is, I don't think that disc golf has seen this yet, which is an influx of outside flippers. People who, because my dad looks at this stuff. Like when we're coming out with a disc, he'll watch the flipping market. He's never flipped a disc in his life. I don't think he would, but he likes collecting stuff that just gain value.
Yeah.
He's not super into disc golf, but he was into trading cards. And so when he sees, the Crystal Raptor that we ran go for 85 on Facebook, he immediately, the next time we ran, like I think it was a Jawbreaker Wasp, he texted me like, hey, would you mind setting one aside for me? Just because he wants to collect it for it to go up.
Yeah.
But that's just my dad being able to see it.
Right.
But there's going to be outside people who are like my dad in that they see that return on investment, but instead of just buying it and holding it because they're like, oh, this is so cool. I paid, my dad likes to be able to be like, oh, I paid $10 for it back when I was 18 years old and now it's worth $600 because he has baseball cards and stuff like that. And he would never flip them. He just likes being able to say that. But then there's going to be people who like to say that, but they like to say, I sold it for this.
All right.
And when those people get into disc golf, then I think you're going to get, because right now it's disc golfers flipping discs for the most part.
For sure, yeah.
But pretty soon, as disc golf gets bigger, it's going to be outside people flipping discs. The one I think that's going to get in it, going on the record.
Here comes a hot take.
Gary V. I know there's connections into there with disc golf. He has looked at the flipping market before. He is a die-hard trading card flipper, baseball card flipper. The second that guy gets a scent of the type of margins he could make on flipping a Get Freaky or whatever the next big drop is, and then he posts a TikTok saying, guys, look, like, because this is something Gary V would say, is like, I'm just out here, and look, you can find these little niches everywhere. Like, this is disc golf, and I'm flipping this for this.
Here's my thing, though, is who... The people that are willing to pay the big dollar for it are typically disc golfers still.
He would still sell it on eBay in a disc golf
I'm just saying, like, so the people that might be willing on the outside to get into it are people thinking, oh, I can buy and then sell. But then those people they're selling to are still going to be disc golfers primarily, I feel like. And disc golfers, like, aren't just a bunch of rich people usually, No,
but they're still buying a Vibram disc for $650.
Make a good point. That did just happen.
And Get Freakies, we have seen all year Get Freakies go for $300+.
I'm just saying, I don't know how much it could inflate.
But I just think it's going to, because when there's an influx, right now, there's still a decent amount of disc golfers getting these discs.
Yeah.
At some point, there could realistically be, because all it would take is one Gary V post of look at this market.
Yeah.
And there could realistically be a drop that out of 2,000 discs, 10 went to a disc golfers. And 1,990 went to flippers.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if you want this disc, you're going to have to pay $100-some or whatever it may be.
It's crazy.
They're
hating to hear that right now.
I'm just saying, hopefully that doesn't happen. But that is when, if you're going to be upset about flippers, just wait. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but I'm just saying, outside flippers, it's going to get on their radar at some point, because in my head, there's very few things that is this little saturated of a community that has this high of profit margins.
It's true.
It doesn't really exist. And so I think that once that's exposed on a bigger scale, then these limited runs that will keep happening, because why wouldn't they, are going to have to go up in quantity, but it's also going to go up in value on the flipping end.
Absolutely.
And if you're a person who doesn't like flippers now, I'm afraid that you might really hate what's coming eventually. Unless the disc golf bubble bursts, which could happen. Because I do think the numbers are way higher than what they should be.
I don't know. I think it might burst as far as like some things, but like when custom runs and custom stamps continue existing and discs go out of production, like there are always going to be collector items around.
There's always going to be stuff. I agree, but
it is a bit crazy right now.
I'm saying I could see the flipping market's always going to be there, but I could see it bursting in the sense of like you're not going to be able to do this, pay $22.50 or whatever, sell for $300.
Yeah,
it might be pay $22.50, sell for $80.
Yeah,
because that's what the flipping market was 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
You were able to get it end of a, Sexton Firebird was like the OG flipper disc, I feel like. Yeah. At least to me. There's ones way before it, but to me...
The Galaxy McPros.
Yeah. When I first saw flipping and got into it, it was the Sexton Firebird and like McPro Rock 3s and McPro AVRs. Those discs you were buying, and what I always did was I'd buy 2, I'd flip 1 to pay for it. So like I'd buy for $20, I would sell for like $50 the next day, and it paid for both of mine, and then I was done because I got to throw it now, and that was that. That doesn't really exist anymore. Now it's like if you bought one of those, you're selling it for hundreds, and then it's gonna be real hard to hold on to the other one to throw when I could sell it for $200.
Right.
But I could see that bursting and it coming back down to a realistic level of like, it being $60 or $70, which is still, it's a good market, but I just think the disc golf market's gotten out of hand. That's just crazy. I didn't expect that rant to be part of the podcast, but that's why it's grip locked. We're going one way, and next thing you know, just like my backhand form, we're throwing it into the middle of the woods. The final topic I want to talk about before we get to make that call was, again, submitted via Discord. So if you have a topic at home that you want us to talk about or hear us talk through, the way to do it is Discord. So check the link in the description of this podcast and head over to our Discord, the podcast suggestions, put it in there. I always read through those. This one came again from Crackalack, and there's a few other ones in there that we'll probably get to at some point, but this one came from Crackalack, and I thought it was good. He said, do you think video playback of certain foot faults should be implemented in the future instead of only using player discretion? And then he said a guy scrubbed a video of Dickerson jump putting and it was a foot fault, which brought up the question. And then he also said, Crackalacken said, I think if a video scrubbing frame by frame is needed, it isn't a foot fault, but apparently this is a heated topic.
Well, that's a good point right off the get-go. Like, there is that like margin of like, okay, do we really need to be looking at it in complete slow-mo? Like, was he gaining?
Like, if he had to go,
because he wasn't gaining an advantage from that. No. If it was that close. But so the video evidence thing is big in like the whole sport of ball golf, disc golf, whatever. The big problem with video evidence is that not everybody's being filmed. So therefore, you can't do it because then somebody's getting treatment that other people aren't.
Well, here's my thing: is in disc golf, what would using video evidence gain us?
Yeah, the foot faults would be one. Now, there could be the question of like misplays of a hole. Like, how else are you gonna know if somebody took that relief from OB wrong, or unless you can look back at the coverage? I think we had situations like that. That came into question with the
Maple Hill Hole 8.
Maple Hill thing, where you can like look back to see how a player played a hole and things like that. But the bottom line is you just can't use video evidence because not everybody can use it. Now, Hunter had a good point earlier, and he was saying for OB calls, so we're talking about not watching the disc fly out of bounds, but the disc is already at rest. And let's say it's like on the edge of the line, or like there's grass here and there's parking lot here, that sort of thing. He was saying, well, everybody has a cell phone where you can, or somebody's gonna, where you can take a picture and show that to the TD, so you're not having to explain it to them. And like that makes a bit of sense to me because everybody can do that. and it makes it easier for the TD to then make the call instead of trying to hear the guy say it and maybe it's the wrong call. So I don't mind photo evidence for like an OB dispute where you can throw a provisional and still continue playing around, but you have it to go back to. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think the video evidence, all it really gains us is foot faults. But like, what did that, like, okay,
I think
what's the big deal with that?
Yeah, I think foot faults in general are a bit overhyped because most foot faults I see, like,
the advantage
was either 0, like they may have even hurt their chances of the throw, or it's very little.
Yeah. But the photo evidence, you know, I've had this come up as a TD before where someone's brought it up, walked up to me, and they tried showing me their phone. I'm like, I can't use photo or video evidence. You just have to explain it to me. And then they explain it, and whether they're maybe like a really good salesman to where they explain it in a way that I'm like, oh, well, that's inbounds. Or they're a really bad salesman that no matter how they explained it, I'm like, that's OB. Like the way you just said that. And they're in your head as a TD, you like paint this picture of what the person's saying. And unless there's like a clear thing of like, you know, yeah, my disc was surrounded by water on all 4 edges, but I think I'm in bounds. And you're like, well, clearly you're not. Like, it's always obscure. So it just is up to like well, the way you're describing it, I think you're in bounds, or I think you're out of bounds, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. If they could just take a picture of it, I think that would be good. The question that comes in is the picture angle and stuff like that. Like,
true.
Will people like try to take it like an angle that makes someone
or
look
just edit their picture?
Yeah. But so there is some ways that I think it's a bad idea. I think if any type of photo or video evidence gets implemented, that's the only one I can see.
Really, what's best is if you can just have enough rules officials spread out throughout the course that
you can
call one over and they can be there within 5 minutes.
Or even less.
Or even less than that.
Ideally.
Yeah.
I mean, in disc golf, I feel like most courses are like compact.
Yeah.
Where if you had like 3 out there and like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would call them.
They would have to have radio.
But like, how would you would have a radio for every card?
No, I'm not sure how they do it on the PGA Tour. I just know that's usually how it seems like they're called in, but I'm not completely sure how that works.
Well, it's probably because they have like so many volunteers that the volunteer has a radio.
Right.
I don't know how it exactly would work, but maybe like the troublesome holes, you have a rules marshal.
Mm-hmm.
So like a hole that you know this OB is confusing.
Too. Like, yeah, there's not some holes might have more confusing OB than others.
Then you put a rules marshal there. But one thing I do want to talk about is like with the foot faults in particular, do you think that more should be called on jump putts?
So you're saying like their foot gets down before the disc is out of their hand?
Either their foot behind the disc leaves the ground before they putt, before the disc leaves their hand, or their foot gets down in front of the lie before the disc leaves their hand.
Yeah.
Is that something that's happening to an extent enough that certain players are getting an actual advantage over other players?
When I think of like the best players in the world right now that are like competing and like playing for titles, and I think about their jump putts, like, no, it doesn't come to mind. I don't feel like it's a hot enough topic that like a certain player is so notorious and they keep winning because of this jump putt advantage.
Yeah.
Like, no.
That's my thing is like, if it was so blatantly obvious,
somebody would be winning because of it.
A, someone would be winning. B, someone would be calling them.
Right.
If it was that blatantly obvious.
Right.
Up to this point, the ones we've seen have literally been like, the reason it looks so criminal is it was like a slow mez, and we're watching it at like 25%. Exactly. And it's like, oh my word, he had his front foot on the ground. Or, oh, Nico was clearly in the air before he released that disc. And it's like, okay,
when it's that bang bang, like guys aren't trying to do that.
Yeah, if you watch it in full speed, it's like, that looked fine. Yeah. And that's what every player's like, that looked fine. One thing I would like to see is less jump putts from like right now, like the 30-foot circle's edge. I would like to see the circle be like 45 feet on Elite Series.
I wouldn't even hate that because I don't jump until I get to like 80 feet.
Well, my thing is if you go to like 33 feet and you try normal putting and then you do a step putt or a jump putt, it's so much easier. That like I feel like there's like this stigma of like, oh, why are you jump putting? It's 30 feet. But I'm like, because I can. So like to me, I'm going to make a 35 footer or whatever at the same rate I'm going to make like a 28 footer if I jump putt a 35 footer. If not, I'm going to miss it every time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why wouldn't I jump putt that while I still can? If it's that easy for me, now imagine if you're a pro who's obviously a way better putter than me, and then you get to 35 feet. It should be like routine. You know, I think that's a spot where a lot of pros aren't landing. They're either 60 feet or they're 20 feet. I feel like, you know, that. But I do think that making the circle to 45 feet could implement some of the like making putting more difficult. to a certain degree. It doesn't take away the big throw-ins by shortening the basket or making the basket smaller. It doesn't take away the big-time jump putts from like 70 or 80 feet because that still happen. But once you're like 45 feet, now you have to actually have a putt. And I think that I don't think it would really affect too much, but it would make the sport just that little bit harder and make a little bit more pressure putts to where, you can't have someone who's like James Conrad at 34 feet. There's some players that are, I think Brinster might be another one. There's some players that are just more comfortable right outside the circle than right inside the circle. And it takes that advantage away.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Another thing that I've had an idea of when it comes to the circle, and some people think I'm crazy, some people think it's a great idea, but I don't know if I've talked to you about it, is if, let's say we make the MPO circle 45 feet and then we leave the FPO circle at 30 feet. Does that make sense? Is that something that you think would be any benefit to the sport?
I don't think it's going to make enough of a difference to really be worth.
Or what if we made the FPO circle 25 feet?
Still.
Here's my thing. I think it's worth exploring because if you look at I'm trying to think of all the sports that do it, but if you look at the high school basketball, they use a lighter ball for women versus for men. If you look at the WNBA, they use a shorter 3-point line.
Well, they can use lighter discs though.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
You got to remember though, they're also all playing against themselves.
Yes. I'm saying from the outside perspective looking in of trying to get the scores closer between MPO and FPO.
But see, that's not what they're doing in basketball. Your example of basketball, they're doing that to make sure that the game can still be played the same way. They can still shoot from behind the 3-point line with the same ability. Not necessarily percentage of makes. That's exactly
what I'm saying.
Not exactly percentage of makes, but literally getting the ball to the rim with the same ease.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I don't think that changing the circle by 15 feet, I don't think 15 feet of distance is going to make, I think it might change the percentage of makes, but I don't think it's that hard for the FPO players to get putts to the basket.
I don't think it's that hard, but when we brought up, the FPO putting thing a while ago, and we said what's the difference? One of the big answers was FPO, the majority of them compared to the MPO have smaller hands, so it's harder to generate that power and get the spin on the disc, which makes a lot of sense. So therefore, if you made the circle bigger in MPO to where, obviously a 30-footer is a 30-footer, but then if it's you can't jump putt till you're at 45, I think that would kind of help the scoring differential slightly. Because to me,
I just think I see what you're saying, but I think the difference is so slight, and it's going to make a stink when they do something like that. Disc golf does something like that. It's not worth the stink.
I guess so.
Because I think you're talking about max of 3 strokes around. Maximum at the
I'm
very
just trying
most.
to think of because obviously
I see what the track you're on.
WNBA and stuff. The reason they have shorter courts.
This is what they do.
They want to make the WNBA faster, more exciting game.
What the U.S. National Championship did, where they shortened the holes, perfect. It was great.
Yeah, it was great.
That was great. That's what they should do.
Because that, and same with, I think, was it Jonesboro? What did we talk about earlier? Where
I think it was that.
You see FPO players going well below par. I think that is what we need to see in disc golf to help grow FPO. The FPO side. Yeah. Because if it I understand par is relative, and that always gets commented whenever I say stuff like this. But the fact of the matter is, it's way easier to tell someone about a player shooting 12 to 14 under par than it is to tell someone about a player shooting 1 under or possibly 1 over. As oh my word, did you see Paige? Mm-hmm. It might have been the exact same round. Yeah. It's just as good of a round that Paige shot 1 over as she shot 14 under.
Right.
But if I'm telling you, and I say 14 under, that just sounds like, holy cow, I need to go watch that. Versus if I'm dude, Paige lit it up. She shot 1 over. Yeah. If you aren't already into FPO, that's not getting you into FPO. If Paige or Kat or anyone is shooting 12, 14, 15 under, I think that gets more people excited about FPO.
Sure.
So I think any way that we can do that gives, a better chance for birdie for the FPO field in relation to par is something that we should explore and we should do as a disc golf, because I think that is going to be key in growing the FPO side and making it, and I could be way off base there. To me, that makes the most sense. Yeah. Because that's what I like to watch in MPO is the birdies and eagles, regardless if it's a pitch and putt or if it's the hardest course on earth. I think that's where a lot of players would really like to see it in FPO. I think that the viewership and everything would go up, and then with the viewership going up, the field sizes would grow with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Could be wrong there, but that's where my head's always been at. So we're going to jump into the final segment, which is Make That Call. I've got an interesting one for you that I feel like you're going to know the answer to, but I could be wrong. So your card approaches a hole, right, that has a stream right down the middle of the fairway that plays as casual.
So it's like Ben Horst.
Yes. A player on your card throws a bad shot, kicks into the stream about 100 feet off the tee.
Yeah.
Everyone on the card can see the disc land in the stream and then watches it float all the way to the basket to where it just kind of somehow magically stops, like 10 to 15 feet from the basket. He's parked. Where is this player's lie? Is it where it went in the creek, at some point down the creek where it like touched a side, or is it where it stopped and finally came to rest next to the basket?
That's interesting. I've never really... I've never considered this one, because obviously if it's playing OB, it's where it went in, you know.
Yeah,
like,
but it's casual.
But this is casual, and I'm trying to think of like how casual water is like considered, because obviously you can play from within it. So like, okay, so like, yeah, surely he can go up to his disc and play from where it came to rest. There must be a rule about water though in the PGA, because surely they know this. I'm saying there must be a rule in the PDGA rules that state if a disc enters water, it has to be from where it entered the water, not where it's carried by stream. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, because if they didn't, like, you're walking up that thing down there.
It's where it first landed in the stream.
Okay.
It's according to Rule 805.01, which is talking about, you know, when a disc comes to rest.
Yeah.
Is that this whole rule is kind of about. And it quotes this: a thrown disc is considered to be at rest when it first stops moving. A disc in water or foliage is considered to be at rest when it is moving only as a result of the movement of the water, the foliage, or the wind.
Okay.
So once the disc has stopped moving on its own,
so
stopped
you could throw a skip shot off of water, and obviously that's valid. We know that.
It's whenever the disc has stopped moving because of anything other than like the water or the wind. It's at rest.
Okay. So a disc goes up in a tree and then falls and rolls. You got to play from where it was in the tree.
According to what I've read there, if it comes to stop. Now, if it gets up there and then it like just
I'm saying it stops. You're like walking up to it,
and then the wind blows it. You're supposed to play from under the tree.
Interesting. Okay.
I feel like that one's misplayed probably more than the creek.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one. I think people would misplay, and it's probably not gonna change that much. Usually, it'll probably just plop out of the tree. But if maybe it plops out and rolls out of under the tree, you're like, oh, good spot.
I mean, it says a disc in water or foliage considered to be at rest when it's moving.
That's a good written, well written rule. I would say.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this podcast. Do not forget that our apparel drop is happening tomorrow.
You look like yin and yang right now.
Yeah, honestly. This white hoodie that I'm wearing will not be dropping until Black Friday. The black hoodie that Trevor's wearing, along with the rain jacket, khaki hoodie, and the dry fit performance long sleeve, those will all be dropping tomorrow on foundationdiscs.com at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Patrons will get early access if you are into that. But you can also check out our social media for all those details and the promotional posts that have been happening over there if you want to see some of the other styles that we are not wearing here, or if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast and you want to get a visual of what these things look like, you can do that over on our Instagram or even on our YouTube. We have videos and stuff showing these things off. They are the best quality merch we have ever ran. I'm super stoked to get these in you guys' hands. I think you're really going to like them. And I'm pretty stoked with how the designs turned out as well. So I don't think I forgot anything. That's going to wrap it up. And thank you guys for joining us. As always, make sure you leave a comment down below. Or if you're on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a review. We enjoy reading all of them, whether you're telling us we're trash or you're telling us we're the best podcast on earth. We read them all, and we appreciate each and every comment and constructive criticism that we get. And other than that, guys, we'll talk to you next week.